is your current traffic conditions for the St. Tammany North Shore.
Okay, call the roll, please, Katrina.
Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Lorino, Mr. Toledano, Mr. Tanner, Mr. Groby, Mr. Dean,
Here.
Mr. Canulet, Mr. Belisario, Ms. O'Brien, Mr. Stefanczyk,
Here.
Mr. Bender, Ms. Blanchard, Mr. Smith. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda is presentations. This is a presentation of proclamation of St. Tammany Parish Government Employee of the Month. Ms. Brister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In place of the Employee of the Month today, I would like to take this time to thank some people especially. So as you all know, in March of this year, the whole of St. Tammany Parish was greatly impacted by devastating flooding events, both on the east and west sides of this parish. 718 structures were flooded, and over 1,000 victims were stranded and rescued by emergency services and by their personnel. The prompt, efficient, and collaborative responses and actions of our emergency response units and emergency services personnel averted the loss of life and kept all of our residents safe. I would like to take a moment now to thank the members of several organizations and entities. First, the Louisiana National Guard, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, the Louisiana State Police, the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, the St. Tammany Parish Fire Districts, the St. Tammany Parish employees, especially those who were activated for this emergency event and worked endless hours. Our local municipal police departments, fire rescue, Acadian Ambulance Service, and a multitude of caring friends and neighbors who braved the storm to come to the aid of their fellow citizens. The actions of these brave men and women who were apart from their own families during their shifts exemplify dedication, integrity, caring, and commitment to public service. These men and women reinforce what we already know, that the citizens of St. Tammany Parish and the state of Louisiana always stand together in times of crisis and work until every person has been cleared from harm's way. Thank you for all the bravery and steadfastness in this time of uncertainty. We are always awed by their service to us, and they're always there every minute we're there, and we thank them for all they do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Amen. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brister. Next item, or the next portion of the agenda, is a consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved in whole by one vote. Items pulled by the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. Okay, so right now what I have to be pulled is under the ordinances for introduction. I have number 3, ordinance number 5556. I have number 4, ordinance number 5557. Number 7, ordinance 5560. And number 10, 5563. Under the items, under the resolutions, I have number 2 to be pulled, C 4551, and number 4, C 4553. What I'll do now is ask all the council members if they have any items they'd like to pull off the consent calendar. Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Toledano? He's not listening.
Yeah.
Mr. Tanner?
Yeah, no, excuse me. I would like to pull item number 3, ordinance calendar number 5556.
If you had been listening, you would have known that we already said that one.
Thank you.
And we're going to pull number 4 too, just for the heck of it.
It's a button practice,
There
strictly
you go.
button practice.
All right. Mr. Tanner? Okay. Mr. Groby? All right, thank you. Belisario? Ms. O'Brien?
I say you something.
Mr. Stefanczyk? Mr. Bender? Ms. Blanchard? Mr. Smith? Okay, any from the administration or in the audience? Okay, we'll continue on then. First item to be pulled is Mr. Toledano's ordinance calendar number 5556, ordinance establishes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent calendar.
That's right. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Mr. Belisario? That's my wife. All right. Okay. Vote with your lights, please. To accept the consent calendar. Got in a hurry.
Mr. Canulet? Yes. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, now we'll go to the items that were pulled. Ordinance calendar number 5556, ordinance establishing a no-through truck zone on Harrison Avenue between Highway 59 and Highway 190. Mr. Toledano.
Mr. Dean, thank you very much. At this time, after talking to a number of people who might be affected by this particular ordinance, I'd like to, at this time, move to postpone it.
Okay. I have a motion to postpone and seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, number 4 is ordinance calendar number 5557, ordinance accepting the dedication of, for public works, dedication for public use of White Oak Lane and White Oak Estates in the Parish Road Maintenance System, Ward 1, District 4. I'm hearing somebody wants to substitute an amended ordinance and introduce. Anyone know anything about that? Mr. Toledano, you are holding this meeting up. Number 4, who's that?
Mr. Dean, a substitute
sorry.
ordinance was
I can't
introduced at the
I'm sorry?
agenda. A substitute ordinance was introduced at the agenda review meeting.
Okay, all right. So we want to, Mr. Toledano, do you want to? Huh? It was already introduced, Mr. Dean. Okay, all right, all right. Okay, so do we need to vote on it? Okay. Okay, do I have a motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Thompson? Okay, call the roll, please. I'm sorry. No? All right, to introduce. Okay, number 7, 5560, ordinance authorizing the parish to accept the dedication of roads, roadside drainage, infrastructure, and signage within Madison Villas subdivision, Ward 1, District 1. I need to postpone. Yeah. Motion by Mr. Thompson to postpone. Second by Mr. Tanner. Vote with your lights, please. Any discussion? Vote with your lights.
Mr. Sharp? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, next item is ordinance calendar number 5563, amending parish code to revise the testing standards for roadway construction and clarify requirements related to drainage and utility trench backfill. I have a note here, pulled for discussion. Does anyone know what that's about?
We just made, it was a clarification made at agenda review that we would include parish roads, and the agenda review committee voted for that, so we just have to reintroduce it.
Okay, all right. So it's a reintroduction, or do we want to vote on it?
No, it's only for introduction.
Okay.
It's-
Okay, a motion to reintroduce by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Stefanczyk.
Yeah, we've asked the Public Works Department to comply with what we did in the agenda review.
Okay, all right. All right. Under resolutions, I have number 2, resolution CS number 4551, resolution approving the issuance of limited tax certificates of Fire Protection District number 2. Any discussion? Okay. All right, does anybody need Mr. Sluter to come up here? We're okay? All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, the next item in resolution CS, C 4553, resolution to set the salary of the St. Tammany Parish Coroner pursuant to Act 181, Section C2. Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I make this motion to postpone, I'd like to explain to everyone in the audience, the public on television, and I think all council members are fully aware, the administration certainly is, and Dr. Preston is. I also want to thank and acknowledge our legal team for doing the minutia type grunt work, okay, that we require here in parish government, led by Mr. Hand and part of Ms. Brister's team. They were able to go through, if everyone remembers when Act 181 was passed in the state legislature in 2013 because of the, at that time, alleged wrongdoings of Dr. Galvin. That gave the parish council and the parish administration through the finance department involvement with the coroner, some oversight, although he certainly runs his own office. We do not get involved in the day-to-day operations. As a part of that later on, once Dr. Galvin resigned, and once Dr. Preston became elected in May of 2014, he and his attorney met with Ms. Pat and her legal team, and I think Mr. Hand with our council attorney, and they created a cooperative endeavor agreement as a roadmap of how we could function best together. Parish government working in cooperation with the coroner's office in a helpful manner and in a manner that included safeguards. In researching it this week, what our attorneys made me aware of and Dr. Preston aware of and council members and Ms. Pat is that there is a section in that CEA agreement, and let me make clear at this point, Dr. Preston has all the funds he needs for us to consider this pay raise that we were going to consider tonight. Why? And it's a good thing, and I want to tell you this, okay? He came to us, I don't remember the month, Mr. Chairman, but it was about, I think, after the summer of last year. And he said to us, I have done research and I can eliminate my toxicology department. And I think all of us on the council kind of went, huh, somebody wants to eliminate a department? Okay, okay. How? Well, I researched it. I can go out I can get the same work done, same quality, get it returned to me in as quick, if not a little bit quicker manner, and save $300,000 a year by not doing the toxicology work in-house. We obviously said, that's your decision, but we applaud it. And Dr. Preston did that. But his 2016 budget was already presented to the council, to our finance committee, okay? The way the CEA is written is that if any one line item goes up, Dr. Preston or the elected coroner has to present a budget amendment to our parish administration finance department, specifically to Ms. Leslie, our finance director, okay? So even though he has $300,000 sitting that he can use for that funding, it's line item by line item. Therefore, he will be sending the budget amendment as per our CEA to Ms. Leslie and her department. They will review it, make a recommendation to the council. We will then be able to put it back on the agenda, okay, and consider it, because we will be fully compliant, both Dr. Preston and the parish administration and the parish council, in considering that issue at a future upcoming council meeting, okay? So we all want to follow, when we found that out from Mr. Hand, we all want to follow the specific intent of that CEA, from Dr. Preston to council members to Ms. Pat to everyone, okay? So with that, Mr. Chairman, with all that I've said, once Ms. Leslie gets it, reviews it, just making an assumption that she's in good with it, in looking at the budget, that it's still in good shape, and would send it to the council, then we can put it on a future council meeting. So I make a motion to postpone until that occurs.
Okay, I got a motion to postpone. And a second. I got just a real quick question.
Yes, sir.
When he submits, and you may not know this, but I'm just,
Yes.
question. When he submits that amendment,
Yes.
is he looking at taking the $300,000 that he has for the lab, subtracting $134,000 or whatever, and then adjusting? Do you know that?
You know, Mr. Chairman, that is a good question. When I talked to
I think it's
Dr.
one that needs to be answered. I mean,
Well, when I talked to Dr. Preston about this, and if you don't mind, I'll let you and Ms. Leslie and Ms. Pat know as well. What Dr. Preston told me was he planned on a little bit later this year in going to the finance department to make them aware, okay, that he had an overage in that line item, okay? So what he could do is do them both at the same time. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Leslie, what you're going to be looking at is, are the funds available in his budget to take on this increase? Am I correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So we'll take a look at, when he presented the budget to y'all, he also included like an organizational chart and some other schedules. So we'll be looking at that to see, like you said, I had heard also that he was going to eliminate the toxicology department. So he has certain staff members that are no longer, salaries no longer
Correct.
needed for those. So he may not actually have to move money into salaries to accommodate this change in salary.
Correct. But because it affects his individual or any individual line item, the CEA requires that we follow this procedure. So I can talk to him, Mr. Chairman, about, and Ms. Pat, if you agree, about letting us know, because the changes in toxicology occurred after he met with the finance committee, is what he told me. And he can make us aware of that budget change and of course, his request for this other budget amendment. Ms. Pat, you have a question?
Marty.
Okay.
He would send the information to Leslie. She would give you all the financial information, and you make the decision on what you want to do from there. That's the process.
All right, Mr. Tanner?
I was just going to add that once the administration gets through with it, they're going to refer it to us. I would assume the Finance Committee of the council will review it and then make a recommendation to the council.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, because as it looks, and as the emails or as the press has put it out there, the council's giving the coroner a 64% raise, you know, wink, wink. Well, we're not doing that. That's not correct. It will be probably a savings. So, as it all turns out. So I have a motion by Mr. Bender to postpone.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, since you mentioned that, and I don't want to address this necessarily early on in the process, okay? But since you did mention that, and I know we have people that are interested in this here tonight and so forth, I'd like to quickly, as a forerunner to this, say, when we had to consider that salary back in February of 2014, we did not know, were we going to be getting another coroner who would work a half a day to 1 day a week. In state law, the state constitution, as Mr. Hand has explained to me, does not spell out any requirement for number of hours worked for full-time elected officials. Am I correct, Mr. Hand? So, we wanted to err on the side of caution. Mr. Roden, who's in the audience, wrote a very good article explaining that to the public. That's why we went in that direction, to be cautious. Dr. Preston has not asked for a pay raise in the last 2 years. He told a number of us he wanted to show the people what the coroner's office could be. Now, the next, last, and only thing I want to say, Mr. Chairman, is that the chairman is correct. He has his own internal funding to provide this. No new taxes, no increases in taxes. But the other important thing is, in this cooperative endeavor agreement that we have, to make the public aware, if you're not, the council and all parish administration employees operate on a labor grade step grade system, where you can get a 1-step increase, or if your supervisor deems just the cost of living and no merit increase. We put Dr. Preston's employees on that same labor grade system, I think a year or so ago. It's perfect because they know, here's my salary, 1-step increase would be this. It gives kind of continuity between us. Dr. Preston is going to be put, if the council approves it, on that same labor grade step system. So what does that mean going forward if this is approved? What it means is there are no 15% the next year, 20% the next year, 22% the next year. He will be on the same 1-step system, and what we proposed, it can't be more than 1 step without any further approval, as his employees and as our employees, so that it's progressive but very restricted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I have a motion, thank you, Mr. Bender, and a second. You got Mr. Belisario? Okay, vote with your lights, please, to postpone. I don't think I have cards.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay. Next portion of our agenda are the appeals. What usually happens here is if there's a zoning case or a planning case, people have the option to appeal. That's what this is about. So this is the third time this one's coming up. Jessica Lacey appealing the zoning commission denial to reclassify 2.88 acres located northeast corner of North Park Boulevard and Park Place. Mr. Toledano.
Yeah, Mr. Dean, thank you very much. as you have stated correctly, this matter has held over for a couple of times, and during a part of that period of time, I facilitated a meeting between the adjacent property owners and the developer and his representatives. And quite frankly, it appeared that we had come to a meeting of the minds between those two groups, and part of that was the developer agreeing to a imposition of some restrictive covenants on his property in conjunction with some other changes. Unfortunately, that document has not been presented to the homeowners, nor have I seen it. On that basis, and by the way, I followed up with the developer and reminded him about it. It's not been forthcoming, so I would at this time move to postpone it again.
Okay, we got a motion to postpone by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
without the request by the appellant, we need to watch the time limit that we're running into, and I believe we're going to exceed that time limit, which means the zoning case would be resolved by time limit.
In checking,
He needs
Mr.
to tell us-
Stefanski, I was told it's 120 days by Mr. Hand, so
Yes.
we're close, but,
Okay, if
So
we're
next
under,
month
I
it'll be
just want to
120.
remind you
Yeah.
that it's close.
well, and my view on that is the developers is requesting it, and it is his jeopardy. He takes the risk because he has not done what he promised the homeowners group and adjacent property owners.
Okay, any further discussion? Vote with your lights, please. Y'all vote?
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, next portion of the agenda is ordinances for adoption. Ordinance calendar number 5502, ordinance establishing a no parking zone on Windsor Court, Ward 9, District 11.
Mr. Chairman, I want to postpone this indefinitely, and I would like to have it removed from the agenda pending bringing it back up for adoption at some future date.
Second.
Okay, who's second? Okay. A motion to postpone indefinitely by Mr. Stefanski, second by Mr. Bender. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, second item is ordinance calendar number 5540, ordinance to amend the 2016 operating budget amendment number 4. Motion by Mr. Belisario. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, third item, ordinance calendar number 5541, ordinance to amend the 2016 operating budget, amendment number 3. Motion by Mr. Belisario, second by Mr. Stefanski. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, number 4, ordinance calendar number 5542, ordinance to amend the 2016 operating budget, amendment 15? Okay, 2015 operating budget, amendment number 13. Motion by Mr. Belisario, second by Mr. Stefanski. Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any, so vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, fifth item, ordinance calendar number 5543, ordinance to amend ordinance calendar CS number 14-5293 and 2015 to 2019 capital improvement budget and program, and further identify fixed assets and grant awards. I have a motion by Mr. Belisario. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Bender. Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, sixth item, ordinance calendar number 5544, ordinance to amend ordinance CS number 14-3246 and 2015 to 2019 capital improvement budget and program, and to further identify changes to the capital improvement list for 2015 to 2019. I have a motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any, so vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, seventh item, ordinance calendar number 5545, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels, rights-of-way, and/or servitudes through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Ward 8, District 13. Michelle? You want to make a motion? Okay. So I have a motion by Ms. Blanchard, seconded by who? Mr. Stefanczyk. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, eighth item is ordinance calendar number 5546, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.933 acres from NC5 to A8. Let's see, Ward 4, District 10, and I do have a speaker's card on that. Ms. O'Brien?
Yes, may I ask the attorneys a question quickly, Chairman? The zoning commission heard this case, and there was an offer of development limits, and there was an offer of a deed restriction made. Are we in possession of a filed deed restriction concerning this zoning case at this time?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to move to postpone.
Turn the light on. Turn your light on.
In that case, I'm going to move to postpone. We are going to give Mr. Bowers some time to, and the opportunity to fulfill his commitments that he made at the zoning commission meeting.
Okay, so I have a motion to postpone, and seconded by Mr. Belisario. I have a Scott Gross. Anyone?
Good evening, Scott Grow. I am at 545 Ocean Drive. I'm the engineer for the project. The update I can give you, Ms. O'Brien, is that the developer has turned the deed restrictions. It is under review by the neighboring property owner, Mr. Storms. And he's ready to file, but he's given Mr. Storms an opportunity to review it to make sure the deed restrictions, his needs. He's agreed that he will not pull a single, will not even apply for anything regarding the property until that is filed. So,
Mr. Grow, he does understand that we have to pass this ordinance before he can come up and even look at a permit. All right. Okay, so I have a motion to postpone and seconded. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, ninth item is ordinance calendar number 5547, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 7,499.9 square feet from A3 to A3 and mobile home overlay, Ward 7, District 7.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
10th item is ordinance calendar number 5548, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 5.51 acres from NC5 to HC2A, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, 11th item is ordinance calendar number 5549, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 8.892 acres from NC4 to A4A, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? Okay. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, 12th item, ordinance calendar number 5550, ordinance to amend ordinance CS number 00-0155 to reclassify 157.667 acres located west of Highway 1085 and east of Austin Boulevard, north of Highway 21, to provide major amendments to original PUD Plan, Ward 1, District 1. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please. Thank you.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, 13th item is ordinance calendar number 5551, ordinance to correct the road and drainage inventory to include Smith Road lateral and an extension to Otis Drive, Wards 3 and 6, Districts 2 and 11.
So moved.
Okay, who did, was that you? Okay, okay, you got that? All right, any discussion? All right, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
14th item is ordinance calendar number 5552, ordinance to authorize the Parish of St. Tammany through the Office of Parish President to acquire 49.179 acres adjacent to the St. Tammany Regional Airport for obstruction removal, Ward 4, District 7, and I do have a speaker on this. Mr. Groby?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Thompson. Mr. Hernandez? No? He's declining. Should we wait just a second, kind of reflect on this moment? I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I say that in all fondness. Okay, any further discussion? All right, vote your lights, please.
Mr. Bender, Ms. Blanchard. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, now we're to the portion of the agenda where we make appointments. Resolution, first one, resolution to appoint and reappoint members to the Board of St. Tammany Development District. It's a parish-wide appointment, Mr. Belisario.
So moved.
Your nominee is Mr. Edwin Canton.
Edwin Canton.
Okay.
Spelled with an I.
Spelled with an I, all right. Any discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Belisario, second by, you want to do it? By Mr. Canulet?
Move to close if there's no other nominations.
Okay. So I have a motion to close the nomination.
So
Do I have a
moved.
second? Second by Mr. Belisario. Let's vote on the motion to close the nomination.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, now we'll vote on the nominee, Mr. Edwin Canton.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, second one is a resolution to appoint Mr. Roger Tomberlin to serve out the unexpired term of Bo Lawson, who resigned on St. Tammany Parish Gravity Drainage District Number 6, Districts 2 and 3. Mr. Sharp? I have a motion by Mr. Sharp. Do I have a second? Okay, by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, third item is a resolution to appoint or reappoint 4 members to St. Tammany Parish Rec District Number 2. All terms have expired. As District 6, Mr. Tanner is Marvin Penton, requested reappointment. Cabrina Longman, Ted Ober, and Mike Kyle. Mr. Tanner? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Tanner to appoint all 4, and second by Mr. Stefancic. Any discussion? Okay, vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Okay, fourth item, resolution to reappoint Skip Phillips, Floyd Trasher and Peter Finger to Rec District Number 5. All those terms have expired. This is District 6, 9, 11, and 14.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Belisario. Was that Mr. Stefanczyk? Second? Okay. All right. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, fifth item is resolution to appoint or reappoint 6 members to St. Tammany Parish Rec District Number 7. All the terms have expired. District 6, 7, 9, and 11. Mr. Tanner, this is George Polk, Earl Graves, Greg Crawford. They requested reappointment. Ms. Brittany Simons, Buffy Singletary, Tim Harzoon requested appointment. A motion by Mr. Tanner to appoint these folks, and second by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, sixth item, resolution to appoint or reappoint three members to the Regional Planning Commission. All terms have expired. This is parish-wide, so we'll need to do something with the nominations. But Mike Lorino has a requested appointment. Steve Stefanczyk and Richard Dick Kelly have requested appointment. I have a motion by Mr. Bender and second by Mr. Belisario. Do I have a motion to close? Okay, I have a motion to close nomination by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. So we're going to vote on the motion to close nomination. Any discussion? Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, now we'll vote to appoint Mr. Lorino, Mr. Stefanczyk, and Mr. Kelly. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Because it's parish-wide, we would need to suspend the rules to adopt, which I would be willing to make the motion on because we have a vacancy with Mr. Falconer going to state representative and Mr. Lorino being a new council member. So I think it's worth it to fill that vacancy to represent St. Tammany Parish. So I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and adopt tonight.
Okay. Have we come up with our votes? Did we vote on, did I ask you to vote on the actual nomination? All right.
Yes.
But we've closed the nomination and we voted on the.
We closed the nominations, and if he's
Okay.
going to ask that we suspend the rules, that would be the appropriate thing to do.
Okay. You want to do that first?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now I have a motion by Mr. Bennett to suspend the rules and adopt. Second by Mr. Canulet. Any discussion? Vote you like?
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. All right. Now we need to vote on the 3 people. Have a motion. We've already done that and seconded. Okay, any discussion? Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, seventh item, resolution to appoint or reappoint 4 members to St. Tammany Parish Sewerage District Number 4. All the terms have expired. This is out of District 4. Mike Noto requested appointment. Clyde Russell, William Bartlett, and Robbie Robertson have requested reappointment.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Toledano, seconded by who? Mr. Belisario. Any discussion on those
Yeah, I
appointments?
got some discussion.
Huh?
I got this discussion, and this not Mr. Noto work for us?
He does work for us. I think we've had employees before. This is on a sewerage district. I don't believe this is the same Mike Noto, though, honestly. This is District 4, and Mike Noto does not live in District 4, so I would think it is probably another Mike Noto, but we can check if you want to postpone it.
No, I don't have an objection. I just know in the past that we've not let people who work for us serve on boards and commissions.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. But I don't believe this is the same Mike Noto.
Okay.
But we'll check if you'd like.
Kick him off at the next.
We can take him off.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Vote with your lights.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, eighth item, resolution to appoint and reappoint 4 members to St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 4. All terms have expired. This is Districts 2, 3, and 10. I know I'm going to say these names wrong, but Lorraine Saba requested appointment, Kathy Nastasi, Pierre Fabre, and Monique Stubbs requested reappointment. Mr. Thompson? Have a motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Sharp. Any discussion? All right, vote your lights, please.
Mr. Stefanczyk?
Mr. Stefanczyk?
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, discussion and other matters is our next portion of the agenda. Motion to refer to Zoning Commission for recommendation the proposed rezoning of 2 lots from A3 to A3 and mobile home overlay, Ward 6, District 6. Motion by Mr. Tanner, second by Mr. Thompson, and Mr. Carlo. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone knows I'm still here. I certainly don't want to disappoint Mr. Tanner. The acreage is not on here, which would make it distinct as to the cost, but given the fact that it's an A3 and actually 2 lots, and actually half an acre per lot, I'm assuming 1 acre or thereabouts, and I'm sorry? Oh, zoned A3? Oh, okay. All right, so well, that's interesting. 50 by 100. That means it would have been.
Wait, let's go ahead and finish.
Anyway, so even though it doesn't say the waiver of fees, that's what you're about to do. And if it were 1 acre, it would have been $375. Now that it's less than that, I'm estimating that it's in the order of $343.50 would be my estimate then. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Vote with your lights, please.
Mr. Belisario? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, the next portion of the agenda is items off the floor.
So
You in a hurry? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Belisario to open the floor for items off the floor. I got a second by Mr. Bender. Any discussion? Okay, it's got to be unanimous vote. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. All right. First item is resolution to appoint and reappoint members to the Board of Commissioners for St. Tammany Rec District Number 1. The council has 6 appointments. Current member Stephen Meyer has resigned. Rick Danielson has requested appointment. Help me out there. Is that Major? Savell, Bill Matthews, Jeffrey Blackman, Daniel Seiden, and Todd Richard have requested reappointment. Motion by Mr. Toledano. Do I have a second? Second by who? Maureen? Oh, Ms. O'Brien? Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right. Second item is resolution to appoint or reappoint members to the Board of Commissioners for St. Tammany Parish Fire District. Number 12, the council has 4 appointments. Kenneth Kimberly has resigned, so we have Stephen Swanson, who requested appointment. Ronald Garrity, Susan Strain, DVM, and Sonny Schwing have requested reappointment. Mr. Sharp made the motion, second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? All right. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, third item, resolution requesting that the St. Tammany Parish Legislative Delegation support 911 legislation relative to increasing surcharge fees for new technology for the St. Tammany Parish Communication District Number 1. Mr. Belisario.
I can make a motion to approve this resolution. I'll just do a quick recap for everybody. I had passed out to council members. We're talking about proposed statewide legislation for the 911 emergency communication funding. Because of dramatic changes in
Mr. Belisario,
technology.
let me get a second on
Sure.
that before you go any. Second by Mr. Canulet. Go ahead.
If you look at the technological changes that are happening, the current state laws that deal with this are very specific. So all of the 911 communications districts across the state are going through all the municipal and parish bodies to get changes to the legislation to give flexibility. Because one of the things that's happening to us, and everybody knows that people are dropping landlines and going to cell phones, and there's a big difference in the rates that you get on a cell phone versus a commercial landline or a home landline. So this is something everybody's looking at, trying to really protect their revenue base for all the 911 centers across the state. So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, Mr. Belisario, if I could conclude then that as people begin to drop landlines and move to cellular services, would it be fair to assume that they're doing that in order to cut down on their expenses?
No, it's a change in technology. And the thing that you have to look in the law, it's very specific on what devices you can use. And a lot of people are going to other means. And there's right now, by these laws, there's nothing there that would allow any 911 emergency communications district to collect any funding.
To sustain the funding level that they
Yes,
had with the
that's what it is.
landline?
Yes.
But my question was,
Overall,
wouldn't it be a fair assumption, though, to assume that people are moving from the landlines to the, not necessarily just for the technology changes, but in order to have a cost savings to their individual budgets? And I know that's
I chair the finance committee for 911, and I've looked at those numbers. I've been talking about this for probably 3 years, that we had to broaden the base of being able to sustain the revenues, because that's a natural transition with people. What we're seeing, and I have staff here who can talk about it, we're seeing a gradual decline in our revenue base. And what really hurts us is more and more landlines are eliminated, either commercial or residential. You're looking at cell phones only. There are other technologies that even eliminates that use. And the law is structured to where people would not have, we would not, and all the other 911 centers would not have the funding to sustain the operations. So that's what we're doing, is really trying to sustain the funding to provide the services that everybody needs.
Okay. Yes, so the other part of that is that technology will also help bring into the GPS. So when someone does call in, and if they don't know where they're at, they'll actually be at some point be able to pinpoint the phone and go directly to the incident. So with the technology, it also should improve times and help the first responders out tremendously. Instead of looking for people for 10, 15, 20 minutes, they should be able to go right to them. And as far as like Mr. Smith is saying, I think the landlines are like the cassette disc, cassettes, discs, 8 tracks. They just phased out.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tanner?
Good things. Landlines are not phased out because people in the country don't get a lot of service with cell phones, so they have to have a landline. Secondly, I would, and I'm supporting of this, but I want to, I'm thinking about, I got 5 grandkids. All my grandkids got a telephone. This is going to be how much increase is this going to generate for 911? That's what I'd like to know.
Richard, I can show you the financials if I'd have them here. What we are seeing across time in our projections on the actual basis and forecast, the revenue is not growing, it is starting to slide because of the change. You're now having small businesses who are eliminating their commercial landlines, and they're using cell phones.
Yeah,
So you're going,
Gene, you misunderstood what I said. I understand that, but we have a lot more cell phones than we do landlines, and so if we start surcharging them, what is the increase? We're gonna still get what we got landlines on, and then we're gonna get on top of that, we're gonna get surcharges on all the cell phones. The other thing is, this thing says a resolution increasing surcharge fees for technology for the St. Tammany Parish Communication District Number 1. I thought the state was looking at doing this statewide.
each of the
I'm not
911.
gonna support it just being done in St. Tammany Parish if it's not gonna be done statewide.
It's being done statewide. It's state enabling legislation that is consistent across the board, so each communications district can't have their separate charges. So it's each of the communication districts are doing this. I got Sean, who's the assistant director. What we're seeing is a decline in landlines, both commercial and residential. Cell phones, if you look at our financials, that number is not going up. What we're seeing is other people trying to use other protocol devices that are not a part of our revenue stream because of how the legislation is written.
So how many cell phones do we have that are not being surcharged?
It's not, all the cell phones, to my knowledge, are being surcharged, but you're looking at people, and if you start looking at people who are using their computers, their home computers for phone calls, and I'll let Sean talk to you on the technology side, exactly what's happening.
So I kind of just want to touch on, like, how we got
tell me
here
who
today.
you are, please.
Oh, sorry, Sean Spancel, St. Tammany Parish Communications District.
Thank you.
So this has been kind of in motion for about 2 years now. This is the first year we're actually going to legislation with this. It was brought upon APCO, which is International 911 Agency, well, 911 Group. The state board for APCO has been putting all this together and have gotten these bills written with the 64 parishes. And what we're doing today is we're just coming to get St. Tammany Parish Council's approval to move forward. This doesn't mean if it does not pass by the state, St. Tammany Parish citizens will not incur this increase. It's going to be a all or one type thing. Right now, we're at 85 cents per cell phone, $2 per business and $1 per home residential. This would raise cell phones from 85 cents to $1.25. While it sounds like a lot, this has not been increased for 19 years. It stayed at 85 cents for 19 years. And since technology's grown, I believe cell phones have also grown in number since in 19 years as well. But yeah, so I really wanted to make sure that you understood, sir, that if y'all pass today and it does not go through state, it does not go to St. Tammany Parish only.
And this is just a resolution just requesting that our delegation support it.
Correct.
So we're not doing any, right.
Yeah, and our 911 board also passed a resolution at their last board meeting. So this is more or less just an extra step that we can kind of solidify it for St. Tammany Parish.
Thank you.
One more.
Mr. Tanner?
One more statement. First of all, I don't like items off the floor. Second of all, I don't like one when you said you've been working on this 2 years and then we had to come and take it off the floor agenda. You know, we should have had more information on this so that, you know, we could have found out exactly how much money we raised and how short you are and what you need it for and that type of stuff. And I know I have made my tour to 911 the other day, very impressed, very supportive. I'm looking forward to the new facility and what have you, but I just don't like off the floor, and I don't like stuff that I don't have all the information on.
Sure. Richard, here's the reason why. With the state legislation, when these bills are going to move forward, we didn't know when that was happening. So there was no basis for us to get the legislation until that was made available to us, which was just, it came in, I think, March the 18th. It was after our cutoff for our regular agenda, a couple days after that. And then it was supposed to be heard in the Commerce Committee on Tuesday of this week, and they deferred it to next week. That's why we were putting on the off-the-floor agenda. Number one, the legislation hadn't been finalized for us to really move to bring any documentation to anybody.
Okay. Mr. Bender?
Yes, sir. First, I want to say I'm very much in support of the 911 and the activities that they do. But I have a question. Your first name was Sean?
Correct, sir.
Last name, please?
Spancel?
Spancel. So, Mr. Spancel, let me ask you. I think maybe here's my question, and maybe you can answer it. Maybe Mr. Belisario, and I'll ask the chairman, to handle that. But 85 cents to $1.25, and I understand, although it's not occurring in Mr. Tanner's district and maybe some of the other rural areas because of cell tower coverage, the amount of cell phones, as you know, have been increasing dramatically over the last 19 years. So we've got a tremendous volume of cell phones compared to 19 years ago, okay? So my question is, what is the estimated revenue that the 40, I don't have a problem considering the 40-cent increase in support of it, but what is the estimated revenue that this extra 50 to 100,000 cell phones we have now compared to 19 years ago is going to bring in, and does the 911 district need that revenue? So,
Can you answer that?
Go ahead, Sean.
So I do not have, I think Mr. Belisario will be able to talk on the revenue increase. What I can talk about, though, is wireline decrease since 2009 has been 13% in revenue, with only a 3% increase in wireless fees. So that does not offset the loss of money along with, and plus also wirelines were $1 compared to the 85 cents, with only a 3% increase.
Okay, Gene, do you have the money?
Without this, if we stay with where the law is currently written and we vote this down, if that state law goes through, what we'll see is a continual decline in our revenue stream. And we're trying to sustain it. We're not trying to increase it. You're talking a 40-some cent increase per phone, but you're not talking about the loss of the $2 on all those commercial lines in small businesses, or people dropping their landlines in their homes. I have one only because my wife refuses to drop the landline in the house, or I would have had mine gone years ago.
Okay, let me cut to the chase. You had to get this number from somewhere. And I think where Mr. Bender's going is that it was 85 cents, now you want $1.25. You didn't just pick $1.25 out of the air.
No, this is correct.
What amount of money are you trying to get to?
To sustain, looking at the change in the technology with cell phones being used and then other devices that are not currently being able to be assessed, to take that to sustain our current revenue. If I knew I was going to get to this level, I would have brought you our 25-year projection.
All right. Mr. Smith?
Going over the same information again, I just want to go on record saying I cannot support this in its current state. And for most of the reasons that were given by my colleagues and myself, but technological advances that we're making in this country, and they're good, and everybody, gravitating to them, but we have to look at the global situation of these increases here, another increase for something else, and we all know that the technological charges go up every year on our cell phone and landline bills. And so when you look at the global construct here, we've got to factor that in when we make the decision to support legislation that's going to be another financial burden on our taxpayers and our residents. And I just can't support it in its current state, but I would support, postponing it and looking at it at a later date.
Well, if we postpone this, the legislation goes through without our support, it doesn't matter. You just withdraw it, and we don't participate in those new revenue streams. Because this is a state law, it's not a local law. And that's what you're trying to do, is prevent us to continue with the excellent 911 center that we have. We're talking a small increase in our cell phones, but we're losing landline revenue. And there are new technologies. I've been harping with 911. I've talked to a few council members in the past, but not to any great depth. You're looking at a decline in these other revenue streams. You're not counting that in. You have to look at the total pie.
Let me, we have a speaker card, Mr. Wayne Bollier.
And Mr. Chairman, I just have a follow-up question when you're ready.
Okay, then we're going to vote.
Okay. Thank you,
How you
Mr. Dean. Wayne Mallier, 531 Normandy Drive, Folsom, Louisiana. I guess I want to address some of the questions that have been asked. And first of all, I'll address Mr. Smith's question. I know he's talking to Mr. Bender right now, so I'd like for him to hear this.
Go ahead.
Mr. Smith, I want to answer your question. Okay, you asked about the landlines and getting rid of landlines. My wife and I recently got rid of our landline. Okay, it was quite a big move for us. We've been resisting it for about a year or two because of cell phones and going straight to cell phones. But we did it because of cost. It was $67 a month we were paying to have a landline at home when we're not at home most of the time, and when most of the phone calls that showed up on our answer machine were political or in some other nature asking for money. Okay, so it wasn't somebody trying to reach us. They reached us on our cell phones. Okay, Mr. Belisario, I agree with you. We have to keep 911 going. Mr. Canulet, GPS, that's important too. But I think we also need to look at our residents, okay? I'm approaching 65 years old. I'm trying to reduce cost, okay? I know dollar here, 50 cents there, 1% state sales tax increase just now. I think we need to look at it in a way that we don't hurt all of our residents, especially those who have fixed income. So, that's all I just want to make you aware of,
Okay.
And the other thing too is I have 2 cell phones, okay? If I go way back when, I only had one phone, only got charged 911. But technology today is great because I can reach my wife when I need to. When she's on the road, she can reach me. But my cost now is not the $67, it's now $150. So it goes to whoever said that cell phones cost more money, it's now costing me more money.
Okay.
So
Thank
thank
you,
you very
Wayne.
much.
Thank you,
All
Wayne.
right, we're going to wrap this up. Mr. Bender?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to clarify something that Mr. Belisario said, and I want to make sure I heard it correctly. Gene, I thought I heard you say that when the legislature votes on this, if it passes, okay, without us showing support for this tonight, that we would not get this revenue? I thought
John,
that's
isn't
what
that
I heard you say,
We've been
because
advised?
To be honest, I do not know the answer to that question. From my
But here's my statement. I don't know, and maybe no one knows, but I don't know what instrument would trigger, okay, us not receiving revenue in our parish if the state legislature is the one that has the vote on it. I mean, this is simply, and I'm not downplaying it at all, this is simply a resolution asking our state legislative delegation to support it.
Yes.
But I would think if it passes, all 64 parishes are included, like it or not.
Yep. You are correct. There are certain parishes, and I do not know the number offhand. I do know that Jefferson Parish is one of them that went to legislation to remove themselves from the group of 911 districts. So that way, all they have to do is go to the public vote of their people to get their money. Right now, Jefferson Parish is at $1.27, I believe, and theirs goes up exponentially with the cost of everything
I don't
else.
blame them for voting to pull
But
out.
but we are not one of those districts. We do fall under. So my thought is that we would fall, if they vote for it, it would still go through with our parish and we would receive that
Okay,
revenue.
let's wrap it up. Just as an explanation before we vote, this is, and just read it again, resolution requesting that the St. Tammany Parish Legislative Delegation support it. All right, it's just a resolution asking them to support it. So, anyway. We ready? Yes. All right. Lower your lights, please.
Motion passes with 11 yeas, 2 nays, and 1 absent.
Okay. let's see. Out of, off the floor agenda, now we are voting, I need a motion to go into executive session. Hang on, I'm going to tell you what it is. Executive session, St. Tammany Parish Government versus James H. Welch in his official capacity as Commissioner of Conservation of the State of Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, Court of Appeal, First Circuit, State of Louisiana, docket number 2015, CA 1152. I have, and everybody, if you would just kind of listen to me a second, I have multiple cards. When we do have discussion, right now what we have to do, we have to have we have to have a motion to go into executive session. There are 3 reasons why you can go into executive session. This is one of them. Lawsuits are one of them. Personnel is another, and I can't remember what the other one is. But anyway, so we can go into executive session, so I need a motion and a second. Then we can have discussion on going to executive session, all right? It's not about fracking, or it's not about any, of the motion on going to executive session. So what we will do, since we have so many people in here, we will go out, rather than asking you all to leave. We'll go out, we'll discuss it with our attorneys, and we'll come back, okay? So if I do have a bunch of cards, please know, and just on a personal note, there is nothing anybody in this room can say that I hadn't heard, read, been emailed, been shouted out. There ain't nothing in here nobody can say that I haven't heard, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of the folks. So if you see that you're repeating yourself or you're hearing people saying the same thing, please save us the time. Not that what you have to say is not important, because it certainly is. This is America, and that's what makes us so good. But please understand that. So to have a motion to go into executive session, Mr. Canulet, and second by Mr. Stefancic.
Does anyone want to speak on the going into executive session? Is anybody going to speak on this motion?
And I should say, when we come out of executive session, it'll be a few minutes. When we come out of executive session, there'll be time for comments as well. Okay? So I do have, so everybody understand what I'm saying? All right.
Good morning. Just like to me, we need to vote to go into executive session. Go into executive session. Come back out. When we come out of executive session, we're going to make some kind of motion. Then I think that's when the people are going to want to discuss.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Vote with your lights, please.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, we'll be right back. Mr. Stefanczyk, and second by Ms. O'Brien. Vote with your lights, please. Everybody vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, we're out of executive session. Do you have a motion, Mr. Stefanczyk? You want to?
Yes, Mr.
Present a
Chairman,
motion?
I'd like to make a very positive motion, and then the people can vote on it either yes or no, and it will give us the direction for our council to go forth or not go forth on the litigation.
Okay.
So the motion is that I move that we file the writ of appeal to the Supreme Court.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Stefanczyk. Who seconded it?
I did.
Mr. Belisario seconded it. I do have a lot of cards here. So we can't, I mean, if you all still want to talk, I know that you all want to address the whole issue. There's a motion to file the writ and seconded. I want to remind everybody, again, like I said, if you find yourself saying the same thing that we've already heard 1,000 times and you just heard someone else say, please be respectful and don't go over the whole thing all over again. So
Mr. Chairman?
everybody has, yes, sir.
We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, everybody has 2 minutes. Anyone who comes up and speaks, all right? Okay, first is in no certain order, Ms. Suzanne Cohen. Suzanne Cohen? That's me. Okay. When you come up, just tell us who you are and your address, please.
Well, I know it's been brought up before, but we still were wondering about the water and getting the baseline for the water. I mean, every time I take some water out of my tap.
Tell me your name and where you live, please.
Oh, Suzanne Cohen. I live on Nancy Road in Mandeville.
Okay. All right.
And
Go ahead.
every time I get some water out of my tap, I'm wondering, you know, is it okay, and is it going to be okay next week, and how do I get that tested?
Okay. Is that your statement? All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Margie Vicknair, pray.
Yep, if I got up here. Second, Margie Vicknair, Pray, Lacombe, Louisiana. I've got a great sign here, great picture. That's a fracking flare in Tangipahoa Parish. That's one of the flares that they would have here at every single site. So I'm really glad, I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart for continuing the fight to save us from this, because that's not something we need in St. Tammany or anywhere really. I did have more statement to say to you, but mainly I want to say we are Voices of St. Tammany, which is just a group of people who got together to help bring attention and educate people about fracking. We're going to do a big concert in May. It's Mother's Day weekend, May 7th, and we're going to celebrate our aquifer and how wonderful and clean it is. And we hope to be able to continue that celebration every year with a clean aquifer and not have to worry about fracking polluting it. So I hope to see you all there. I'm inviting you. If I can hand some of these around, I don't know if I have enough for everyone, but I can get more for you. But May 7th, like I said, we're going to be celebrating the aquifer and the clean water, and we hope to see all of y'all there helping us celebrate. And I want to remind you that we have so much here, and I don't think I have to remind most of you. Many of you have been here longer than I have, but we have such a wonderful place here. And it's not a place that we need oil and gas. Oil and gas has been touted. The myth of oil and gas has been that it's been so great for Louisiana. Well, if it's so great for Louisiana, why are we at the top of every bad list and the bottom of every good list? Why is Louisiana one of the poorest, most poverty-stricken states in the United States of America? I think there's some big lie going out there, and that we need to realize that, and we need to look to develop St. Tammany in a way that's clean, with industries that are clean, with businesses that are clean, and turn our backs on the oil and gas myth and start looking for things that will really help make the state great and help the people here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, Mr. Robert Cuppay? I don't know how you, okay. Okay, Mr. John Lee.
Thank you. I'm John Lee. I live at 826 Old Landing Road in Covington. And to me, this issue is primarily one of overreach by big government. I believe that our Constitution gives us, especially us in this parish with our home rule charter, the right to make our zoning regulations the way we want to. And I believe that there's a terrible thing that's happening to us, and that the state government thinks that they don't have to adhere to this type of ruling. And so hearing that you may be willing to continue to defend our rights, our constitutional given rights in this particular issue, I commend you very much, and I thank you very much for that. Another thing that I've heard is that it's not going to cost us any more money than we've already spent on legal fees to continue this fight. If that's true, then there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't do it. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Ms. Marta Badon. Hello.
Marta Badon, Slidell, Louisiana. I would like to ask you to go ahead and continue this legal fight to stop the fracking effort. There have been hundreds of studies since this happened indicating and proving environmental damage sustained in places where fracking is conducted, infrastructure damage, air pollution, aquifer poisoning, earthquakes, overflowing toxic ponds. The list of blight goes on. The citizens of St. Tammany do not want this. Thank you so much. If you continue this legal fight against it, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michelle Johnson.
Hi, I'm Michelle Johnson. I live in Slidell, Louisiana. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Oil and gas companies are not required to disclose exactly what is in their fracking fluids, particularly those referred to as trade secrets. In Pennsylvania, doctors must sign a non-disclosure form to see the full list of chemicals for the purpose of treating exposed patients, and they are prohibited from sharing that information with their patients and other doctors. A North Carolina bill would make revealing fracking secrets a misdemeanor crime. Fracking fluids contain carcinogens, cancer-causing substances, and endocrine-disrupting compounds. The endocrine-disrupting compounds can cause adverse developmental, reproductive, neurological, and immunological effects in humans and wildlife. The fracking wastewater may also contain radioactive compounds and heavy metals released from deep underground. Shallow fracking has been shown to contaminate drinking water in Wyoming in a peer-reviewed study. And I quote, "The sampling wells contained methanol. They also contained high levels of diesel compounds, suggesting they may have been contaminated by open pits where operators stored chemicals. The deep groundwater in the region contained high levels of salt and anomalous ions that are found in fracking fluid. The chemical composition suggests that fracking fluids may have migrated directly into the aquifer through fractures," end quote. We cannot afford these risks. Please continue the lawsuit against fracking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Leanne McGee.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name is Leanne McGee. I live in Abita Springs, Mr. Toledano's district, where our mayor, Greg Lemons, and the aldermen and women have also legally opposed this potentially disastrous project. And we thank them for listening to the citizens of Abita and for recognizing the importance of protecting our water. I have been an employee of the St. Tammany Parish School Board for 18 years. In fact, I am Substitute of the Year at 5th Ward Junior High, which is Mr. Tanner's district. I believe my job is to protect the well-being of my students at all times. I take my job very seriously. I'm here to stand up for all the students of St. Tammany Parish, not just those at my school, where my 2 sons attend, and not just the students of Lakeshore High School, which will be directly and immediately affected by this industrial activity, but all the students who thrive on the clean air and water they have at home and at school. Please demonstrate for them what thoughtful planning, deliberate leadership, and hard work can accomplish. Please show them, as I show my own children, that following through on one's commitment is what responsibility is all about. Thank you. Oh, also, as we go to vote this Saturday for the millage supporting the Florida Parish's Juvenile Detention Center, let's model for those children and for all our children what integrity looks like. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. William Badon.
Hi, my name is Bill Badon. I'm from Slidell. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Tammany Parish. My family's been here since the mid-1700s, and it's something that special to me, this land, this water, this air, the trees, and it's something that I appreciate that you, all of you, have voted toward. We continue this fight. It's important. Once it's destroyed, we can't get it back. It's important to our grandchildren. I know, Mr. Tanner, you talked about your grandchildren. It's important for the next generations that we protect it now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Marion Lee? Marion Lee? All right. Okay, Judith Jones.
My name is Judith Jones. I live in the unincorporated part of the parish with the Mandeville mailing address. I ask the council to please vote to continue the lawsuit against Talus Oil fracking in St. Tammany. Last fall, I walked door to door in 4 of your parish districts. Almost universally, the residents that I came in contact with were absolutely against fracking. And it's on behalf of those homeowners and those citizens that I'm speaking to you tonight. When I worked at GE headquarters in New York, they constantly reminded us of Murphy's Law. What can go wrong absolutely will go wrong. And I think it's important if one of the world's largest, oldest, and most successful companies in the world can actually remind their employees constantly of the frequency and the importance of accidents, then perhaps we should consider it more seriously when we're discussing fracking happening in St. Tammany Parish. Accidents are important because there are 700 chemicals used in the fracking process. And many of them, as has been said before, are known carcinogens, known toxins. Do we really want these poisons in our homes, near our schools, and near the precious water that's underneath us from which we drink? It's rarely noted, and it's very important, that banks stop loaning mortgage money when fracking comes to town. How can we call it positive economic development when fracking comes and creates a situation where homeowners cannot access the funds that are the most important and the biggest investment of their lives? Last year, when realtors started talking about...
Wrap it up, please.
Okay, well, last year when realtors started talking about fracking with their clients, a friend of my neighbor had the purchaser back out of her home sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Simon.
Gary Simon, Covington, Louisiana. I strongly urge this body to appeal the judge's decision regarding Hillis and thus vote to send this matter to the Louisiana Supreme Court. 10, 20 years ago, I could not imagine myself standing in front of my parish's council, speaking on behalf of such an urgent matter. I think we all know the decision is already in. Fracking should permanently be banned. Within our own country, fracking in many instances is either banned or there are moratoriums currently in place. Outside the U.S., there are many countries where it's completely banned, such as Wales, Germany, France, Bulgaria, Romania, South Africa, Czech Republic. Where there's not a total ban in Europe, there are ongoing moratoriums that hopefully will lead to the same conclusions. That fracking and the carcinogens used in the fracturing process, the devastation it brings to cities and the environment, the recklessness of its holding wells where toxic chemicals make it into communities' drinking water, eventually leading to nosebleeds, nausea, illness, and possibly death. Fracking that leaves many once sustainable, beautiful townships and countrysides wastelands with dead trees, brown vegetation, and poisoned wildlife. This particular fracking that Hellas wants to bring to St. Tammany must be stopped and the issue permanently put to rest. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Gail Leday.
I can't say anything that hasn't already been.
Bless your heart. Good for you. Thank you. Pete Miller.
Good evening. My name's Pete Miller from Abita Springs. I just bought a house there in Abita, and so I'm invested in St. Tammany Parish. Forbes report by Alex Epstein dated July 19, 2013 quotes an excerpt from a Halliburton report, Hydraulic Fracturing 101, paragraph 16, sentence 3 states, there is no such thing as a leak-proof gas well. Schlumberger Limited, the world's largest oil field services company, hired Southwestern Energy to identify percentage of casing failures. The results were 5% of casings fail within the first year, 50% of casings fail within 30 years. In St. Tammany Parish, the hydraulic fracturing is going through the parish's sole source aquifer, the Southern Hills Aquifer, one of only 2 remaining untainted aquifers in the United States, by the way. And so in case the Supreme Court does fail to stop the fracking, my question is, what is the plan for when the parish's sole source of water becomes poisoned? Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy O'Hare.
Hi, I live on 1082 on Military Road in Bush. I want to thank you all for your decision. This was great. I just have some little points here. On that land, they can put up 2,200 wells. The problem with the man camps in Nebraska, they had to put barbed wire because the guys get out on the weekend and they cause so much crime that they've actually encased them in barbed wire, so they can't leave the property. Denton, Texas, where this started and began, has voted against it. They no longer have fracking. And the vice president of Hellas went on the local news to tell us they're going to train our firemen to put out the fires when it happens. So apparently they're waiting for a problem. And then the last thing, one more thing, and I'll leave it, excuse me for this, I know it's American Idol night. Give me land, lots of land in the parish that I love. Don't frack me in. Thank God Cole Port is not here anymore. That's all I can say. Thank you all. I commend you.
That is a first. 12 years, never seen that before. 13 years. Okay, Kevin Coleman.
Talk about hard acts to follow.
Can you dance?
Kevin Coleman, Mandeville. First, I want to thank all of you for your vote today. And I know you got lawyers all over the place advising you here. And I'm sure everybody here is very well aware. Maybe I'm saying what my comments are for my confreres behind here. As many people here know, I am as ardent anti-fracker as anybody else. But this particular case that you've now chosen to take to the Supreme Court is not about fracking. It's not about oil drilling. It's about the right of this community to govern itself through zoning. Yes. This is an incredibly important case, and it is extremely bad case, as I'm sure you're all well aware. We're not only fighting for our right, this community's right, this council, our elected officials to do what they are supposed to do, what we elected all of you to do, but to do it through zoning. And this case says you can't do that. Anybody can go get a bill in Baton Rouge and plop whatever they want anywhere in a parish as long as they get it passed in Baton Rouge. And that has never been the law. This case is contrary to so much that has happened. And I think we have a right of appeal, not merely discretionary writ with the Supreme Court, but an appeal. I believe that if there's any sense in the Supreme Court, they will grant the writ. And what this parish is doing is not only fighting for its own right, for our rights as a community to govern ourselves through zoning. This case affects every single municipality and every single parish in this state. And you are fighting for that as well, and I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna mess this up. Justine Rydzeski?
That's good.
Did I do good?
That's pretty good.
All right.
That's as well as anyone does. Hi, I'm Dr. Justine Rajewski. We just bought a home in Abita Springs a year and a half ago. We bought the old Portavent house, and we bought it with oil money. We were hoping to retire here. We knew fracking was in the works, and we almost pulled out of the sale, but we decided that nobody would do something so foolish in the sole source aquifer across the street from the high school. Even though my husband does work for an oil company, we thought, surely that will not happen. And we decided that we would rather take the bath and take the chance and jump in. I want to thank you all. I've been trying to get back from Houston to Louisiana for 15 years, and I've been waiting my whole life to live in a place like Abita Springs. But I briefly just want to represent the Catholic point of view. It's the largest constituent you have in religions. In the latest encyclical that great radical Pope Francis put out on care for our common home, he agrees with the Orthodox Patriarch, Bartholomew. They've spoken for human beings to destroy the biological diversity of God's creation, for human beings to degrade the integrity of the earth by destroying its wetlands, for human beings to contaminate the earth's water, its land, its air, and its life. These are sins. For to commit a crime against the natural world is a sin against ourselves and a sin against God. The Pope continues, he acknowledges underground water sources in many places are threatened by the pollution produced in certain mining, farming, industrial activities, especially in countries lacking adequate regulation or control. And finally, the Pope says, as often occurs in periods of deep crisis which require bold decisions, we're tempted to think that what is happening is not entirely clear. Superficially, apart from a few obvious signs of pollution and deterioration, things do not look that serious. Such evasiveness serves as a license to carrying on with our present lifestyles. This is the way human beings contrive to feed their self-destructive vices, trying not to see them, trying not to acknowledge them, delaying the important decisions and pretending that nothing will happen. Thank you for not just pretending that nothing will happen. I'd like to ask the conservatives here to continue to be conservative. You share your root word with the word conservation. Be as conservative with our resources as you would like to be with our money.
Thank you. Thank you, Justine.
Please don't enable one family across the lake and one company to endanger all the people of St. Tammany. I thank you for doing the right thing. I thank all of you.
Okay, Donald, is it Castile? Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak on this. I think you know the general consensus in this audience. I wanted to add one fact. Nationwide, when an area has allowed fracking, home values drop by 27%. We don't need that. Everybody's big investment is their homes and their property. And I could go over some of the same points that have already been gone over, but please stand up and protect this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Ernst.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Carl Ernst, Lacombe. As many of you know, I'm an advisor to CCST, and tonight I'm here representing CCST. I came here with a wonderful, wonderful presentation to convince you to do something. You torpedoed that, and I don't get to be brilliant tonight. So I do want two things. I want to thank you for your vote on behalf of CCST. It was unanimous, which is truly remarkable. It will send a clear message to the state, to an agency of the state that needs a clear message, and to the rest of this state, as other speakers have said. So thank you for that vote. Second, CCST joined with the parish from the beginning because we, like you, thought it was a constitutional issue, and fundamentally, we as a parish had to defend our rights. CCST will stay in this suit with the writ all the way to the state Supreme Court with the parish. And we welcome the opportunity to do that. And I think everybody out here, we owe them a standing ovation. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Yeah, I stand. I know. If we go anonymous. Okay. Rita McDonald.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you for fighting. I'd like to say two things. My husband has 50 years as a senior piping design checker in the oil and gas industry. And my husband said, I'm not against fracking. The problem, and the whole problem, is the location, one, and two is the water aquifer. And so like my husband told me, he said, this should not be here. They can go out in the Gulf. There's other places they can go. You've got 1,400 students, and benzene, a chemical, causes a childhood leukemia. And look on Facebook for little Annie Rosenthal in Mandeville, who's got acute leukemia that lives off that exit. I feel for her and her family. But here's the other thing. When fault lines move in opposite directions, they cause tremors, serious earthquakes, all kinds of disasters. We used to think we did not have to worry about them in Louisiana, which is wrong. We have quite a few. Think of yourself. You own a house? Yes, I live at 128 Penwood Loop in Crestwood. I bought my lot from Bruce Weiner and had my house built. Our slabs are not designed for earthquakes, even small ones. They will crack the steel tension system of your residence that we have today, and it will not hold them together. This will destroy your house, each and every one of you. Hellas Oil and the Portavants are not PB, and they do not have the insurance and they cannot afford to repair all the damage to the homes in St. Tammany Parish. And remember one thing, your homeowner's insurance will not cover this. And remember, the Federal Safe Drinking Act, not city, parish, state, Federal Safe Drinking Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please, everybody, do understand, we haven't voted yet. There's just a motion and a second, so we're going to hear all the discussion, then we'll vote. I just wanted to kind of, something I heard. That's right. Stuart Eastman.
I'm Stuart Eastman from Abita Springs. And rather than rehash the arguments against fracking you've heard, I just want to remind all the council people that while taxes and zoning is all very important, and that's most of your job, this is probably, this fight, both what you're voting on now and continuing the fight if necessary, is probably the most important thing you're going to do during your term of office. So I urge you to use everything you can and put everything you can into thinking this through as far as you can, because it's that important. The environment is forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Doney, is it D-O-N-E-Y?
Hi, my name is Sandra Doney. I live in Slidell. I recently received this in the email, in my mail from the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. It says, prayer alert, America is at a tipping point. I think this applies to our parish. I'll read a little from this letter. Dear friend, I don't need to tell you America is in trouble. Washington and our political system are fractured. We've seen violence at political rallies. One candidate is under investigation by the FBI. Another candidate says we need a political revolution. One thing I'm sure of, what America really needs is a spiritual revolution. It will only happen if we turn to God. The urgency of repentance and prayer for our nation becomes more obvious by the day. As Christians, we need to stand together and ask God to intervene in this country, to forgive us and to give us another chance. And then he goes on, our nation is broken, politically, spiritually, and morally, and our only hope is Almighty God. And a scripture here, turn us back to you, O Lord, and we will be restored. Lamentations 5:21. And then another scripture here. The Lord was moved by prayer for the land. I think it is revealing that our natural and physical circumstances are a reflection of our moral and spiritual condition. I believe that God wants to bless us. He wants us to prosper and to be in health, but we have to seek Him with all of our hearts. We have to do what is right and pleasing in His sight. I hope that you will not sell us out to industry. I hope that you will consider our families, our parish, our health, and our good future, and that you will protect us from fracking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, John Michael Myhall, did I get it right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm Mandeville, Louisiana. I'm just going to take a second to say thank you. I'm here with a couple other people representing a group called the Preserve St. Tammany Initiative that was formed about a year ago. And we have actually created a pretty diverse coalition of people that cross a lot of boundaries. We've actually been able to gather together people who are both far to the right and far to the left. And the reason we have can probably be found in one of the slogans that we've put forth, which is our parish, our say. And I want to thank you because your motion tonight and hopefully your unanimous decision will reflect that and your civic responsibility, and we appreciate it. Mr. Coleman is exactly right. The issue here is greater than just fracking. As scary as that proposition is, the Preserve St. Tammany Initiative is very concerned about heavy industrial development on a greater scale, because we know that those things very much go hand in hand. So if we can retain local control, then our citizens get to decide what they want, be it yes, be it no, but we should be the ones to decide. So thank you for your decision.
Thank you. Reverend Robert Belknap.
Robert Belknap, and I live at 37148 West Power Line Road, Pearl River, Louisiana. My concern is several-fold, and you know, and everybody in this room knows, our nation right now is in turmoil because the perception is that the people no longer trust those in office. And that should not be, because we elected you, and you took an oath to serve us. President Brister commented earlier about the great response that we had as a result of the hard rains that we had. Just think about what would have happened with about 4 or 5 mud ponds that would have been devastated by the floods. All those chemicals would have been all over this parish, number one. Number two, I think it's already been pointed out, and I just want to reinforce it. We trust you to set the zoning laws where we live, what's commercial, what's residential. To have that literally stripped from you is appalling. Please remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra, is it Kreber? Krebs. I'm sorry, Krebs. Sorry.
Hi, Cassandra Krebs. I'm a resident of Old Landing in Covington. I'm here on behalf of Preserve St. Tammany Initiative and Tammany Together, and I had, of course, prepared something, and what I was prepared to say, I was prepared before you even came out here tonight to say thank you for having made the right decision in the beginning to get involved in this, and thank you again for making another right decision, which was to appeal it in the first place. And now I can stand here and say thank you for making, once again, the right decision to take this to the finish line, and it is the right decision, and we appreciate it. Preserve St. Tammany has over 1,500 members, and like I say, we want to thank you for making the decision today. I'm an attorney in the community. I did read the appellate decision. I was very disappointed by it. I'm sure you've talked to your lawyers about it and whatnot. And I've been interested, I've kept up with the legal issues all along for the last couple of years, and I've been very interested in particularly the constitutional issues. So it was very disappointing on the appellate level that they just grazed over the top of the constitutional issues, which I feel that they did. And to me, that's where the meat and potatoes is, that the constitutional protection of our natural resources under Article 9, Section 1, those are the public policy issues. Those are the ones that people really care about, not the procedural things. And so they really didn't dig down and talk about the things that we as people are interested in, the public policy issues, and I was disappointed in that. But generally speaking, if the Supreme Court accepts this, they will be much more likely to do that. And so, of course, as you know, and by the way, it's very hard to be on the end of the speaking list, but I will say that Mr. Lee and the Reverend and Mr. Myhall and Mr. Coleman, I think somebody's been hacking into my email because this is exactly what I was prepared to say here. But what I wanted to say is that, I don't believe fracking it belongs in this parish. I don't think any heavy industry belongs in this parish. I'm very adamant on that. But this whole thing, as they mentioned to you before, and I'm just going to repeat it because we need to keep this in mind. This preemption issue, this is about democracy, and it's about taking control from us. We are all here tonight to act as a community and take care of community business amongst us, because we're the ones who live here. So, this is what it's about, and this is a very big issue in the whole United States, the preemption issue. And so it's way bigger than the heavy industry for us. So even when we take this past this case, please be a model. Let's be a model for the rest of the country on this preemption.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Eads, do you want to speak? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Bonnie Eads. I am the Executive Director with the North Shore Business Council. I'm here today, this evening, to voice the North Shore Business Council's opposition to the Council's consideration of further litigation involving Commissioner Welsh's decision. His decision has already been confirmed by Judge Morvant of the First Circuit Court of Appeals. The Department of Conservation's decision would indeed override the parish's zoning ordinance. The parish has already spent close to some $300,000 of taxpayers' monies on this litigation. The NBC does not believe that it would be prudent to spend additional dollars to file a writ with the Louisiana Supreme Court. To pursue this matter would only commit additional taxpayer dollars further. At a time when the oil and gas industry is laying off people throughout the country, and more importantly, even in our backyard, we have an opportunity to realize the creation of additional oil and gas jobs right here in St. Tammany Parish. During 2014, the oil and gas industry comprised some 10 to 13% of the parish's economy. Every job in this industry generates 2.5 total jobs through payroll spending and business-to-business spending. The NBC believes that the parish has done its due diligence in pursuing its legal challenge to the ruling by Commissioner Welsh. It is now time to stand down and respect the court's decision in this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, with that being said, we have a motion and a second. Let me just tell you before we cast our votes, this is not, somebody mentioned something about selling out the parish or whatever. I mean, that's, with all due respect for the person who said that, that's probably, it's offensive, I know to me, because of all the hours that we've been looking at this. I promise you, we as a council and as administration want the best. We all feel what you feel. We all love the tree. We're all over here. By the way, that, I remember when I was running for office this past time, I was saying, when everybody was raising hell about how awful this, parish government was, why are people continuing to come here? People come here because this is a great place to live, and that did not happen by accident. And so this is a zoning case. It's a fracking case too, and I understand that. But this is I can understand that Mr. Stefansik's motion was not a political one. It was not because he was being pushed by anybody or anything like that. It's because we just got some facts, and we want to go with the facts. We've been talking about this, and that's what this is about. Okay, so it is offensive if it's suggested that any of us are choosing to sell the people out. Whatever decision we make, it's based on a whole lot of different angles that are financial, everything, okay? So it's not just a real easy cut and dry decision as it seems to maybe a lot of you all. So with that being said, is there any further discussion? Mr. Tanner?
I have filled out a card.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry. What's your name? Come on up. Okay. And then Mr. Tanner has something. I'm very sorry. We lost
That's
it.
okay. Good evening. My name is Susan Tyler, and I live at 786 Brewster Road, Madisonville, Louisiana. And I thank you for continuing to pursue the case against the DNR and Hellas Oil. This case is about the parish's right to enforce its zoning laws, free from interference from other entities. The highest purpose of zoning should be to protect the citizens from land uses, industrial or otherwise, that could harmfully impact our safe environment and the well-being of the residents. We must always do all we can to protect our physical environment and our quality of life, and we now find ourselves in the position of having to fight for our right to do just that. The citizens have clearly spoken. Our charter and our zoning laws represent the will of the people of this parish. We have no industrial zoning by design. We value our precious land, air, and water, and we reserve our right to protect and maintain our environment as we see fit. We must continue our fight to retain our right to self-determination. We're fighting here for a fundamental principle of democracy. We, the people, decide what will happen in our neighborhoods, within a stone's throw of where our children attend school, not a corporation. The constitutions and laws of Louisiana and the United States were written for the people. It is our duty to object if our will, expressed through our charter and zoning laws, is not respected. The outcome of this case has the potential to affect St. Tammany forever. If we lose our air and water quality, then we will lose our health and our quality of life, and there will be no going back. We must continue our fight to preserve our home. Thank you for protecting the citizens of St. Tammany by continuing the lawsuit against Hellas and DNR.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tanner. Mr. Tanner, then Mr. Groby, then Mr. Smith, Stefansic, and Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. First of all, I want to say that, people stand up and say, you got to represent us and represent what we want and what have you. And I'm looking at 75 people out of 250,000 people in this parish. Also, I really feel sorry for you people who really believe this is going to be the end of the world, because we have been fracking in this country for over 75 years. So
Please,
we're
Please be
still
respectful
living.
of everybody else talking, please.
We're still living. So, what are we worried about? The other thing is, we voted to spend $175,000, and I heard somebody say we need to stay conservative. We need the conservative feeling and what have you. Well, what we're going to do? Spend another $175,000 to lose? One of our own lawyers said there is a 1 chance in 1,000 that the Supreme Court will even hear our writ. So, what are we doing this for? I mean, and the main thing that I want to say, and I know every councilman up here has their own district, but in my district, each one of us should represent the people that are in their district. I feel my vote tonight will represent the majority of the people in my district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Let's see, Mr. Grovey. Okay, please, everybody was, I'm not going to ask you again, and I will ask this gentleman to ask you all to leave. All right? They were respectful of your opinion, so please be respectful of theirs. Mr. Grovey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm not going to pick that battle.
From the offset, when I first learned of this, happened to be in my district, I listened for the first 24 hours to Mr. Pointevent and some members of the North Shore Business Council and those supportive of it, including the Economic Development Foundation, about the economic impact of this parish. Hearing the comments that the leader, or the speaker, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, I apologize, made about being supportive of this venture, I can't help but wonder, and Ms. Vickner, can you hold your photo up for a moment? That's the type of business that if we lose this battle, we will be facing. That may be hot air right now, as being from political side, it sounds kind of funny. That will cool off, that will drift down onto our homes, our families, our children, our schools. That's not what the future of St. Tammany is about. Please consider that. Body, please consider what we're leaving for our grandkids. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we want to briefly add this comment to all of us who are here assembled tonight as it relates to this question that we're debating and we're getting ready to vote on. And we want to add this commentary just as a bit of encouragement to all of us, because the final say, the final decision, and the final word that's going to determine the end of this question is not going to be by any of our own doing. It's going to be because of what God wants done. And I'll encourage all of us, council colleagues, residents and taxpayers, by looking to him in what we believe that's going to be the final outcome, and believe that. I want to point you to one scripture, Mark 11:24. And it says, therefore, I say unto you, what things soever you desire, and we all desire equality of life here in St. Tammany Parish, whatsoever things you desire, when you pray, believe in that. Believe it, and you shall receive it, and you shall have it. So I offer those words of encouragement to all of us as we go back and forward about this question and the final resolve of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Amen. Mr. Stefanczyk. Steve.
I was waiting until they got done applauding for me. Okay. Oh, they were applauding for TJ, I'm sorry.
I don't think they're applauding for you. I think they're applauding.
I just, first of all, want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and expressing your opinions. I think this has been something that's been, this council has been dealing with this for quite some time. I want to point out to the people here, because I listened to over 20 people talk tonight. 12 of them talked about fracking, and 6 of them talked about the zoning case that we're dealing with. And I want everybody to understand this case has nothing to do with fracking, has zero to do with fracking. This has to do with whether or not we have the right to determine what happens in our parish by zoning. And that's the entire premises of this case. It doesn't mean we can stop drilling. It doesn't mean we can stop fracking, it doesn't mean we can do anything. It's a zoning case and says, do we have the right to make our own determination in zoning and what applies in given zoning areas? That's what at least that's what I think it's all about, and that's what I think our lawyers have convinced me for a long time, that that's what we're fighting for, our own self-governance as much as we can. To the people that talked about the money, we have spent right at the $175,000 mark. This writ, and we said it won't cost us any more money, but we do have filing fees. And for every piece of paper we file up there, we're going to have to pay for that, plus the $350 to file the writ, or $325, I think it is. So don't walk out of here tonight thinking that this lawsuit is about fracking. I mean, I realize a lot of you came here because of that and thinking it was, and you spoke because you're thinking it was, but this lawsuit is really not about fracking. That's our own self-determination is what we're trying to deal with. And it is, to some extent, it's a ruling for most of Louisiana, not all of Louisiana, not every parish in Louisiana, because we are, not every parish in Louisiana has a home rule charter. So it only affects those that are given powers in the home rule charter versus the police powers of the police powers that the state contains for themselves or controls for themselves. And that's what the fight is all about. Do their police powers overrule our powers to do our zoning the way we want to? And hopefully everybody leaves here tonight, whatever this vote is going to be. And I put the motion on the floor because it should be a positive motion. And as I said before, if it gets more votes in favor of it, we'll file the writ, and if it does not, then we won't file the writ. And that's the approach that I took tonight with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the council and people in the audience, the first thing that I want to say is I think it's absolutely appropriate to thank Mr. Hand as the head of our legal team for the Parish Council, Mr. Savant, Ms. Carlin. I know Ms. Kelly has been involved on Ms. Pat's side. And I want to offer, and I know Mr. Hand would do this, I'm going to do it. We have a very special gentleman who continues to work for us part-time. That's Mr. Neil Hall. And let me tell you what, after 12 years, and I had to deal with a lot of attorneys for 30 years running an elevator company and getting sued all the time over my toe got caught, I tripped, and security cameras show, oh, nothing happened, but you still get sued. Mr. Hall's ability to research is dynamic. And we could only go in the back in executive session and come out with decisions on how we're individually going to vote because these people put the time in, okay, to provide us with the necessary information to make an educated decision for what's good for our parish, okay? So I want to thank our entire legal team. Mr. Hall, I can tell you, and he would never say this, but I can tell you this because I'm working on a project with him, and I've had to call him a number of times. He gets paid 2 days a week, and he has an appropriate salary for that. Many times I've called him on his off days. Jerry, can I get back to you in about an hour? I'm right in the middle of working on research on this writ. That was no charge to the parish. Nothing turned in. And so, Mr. Hand, Mr. Hall, our whole legal team, thank you for providing us the information to make an intelligent decision, okay? I really appreciate it. I personally appreciate it. And I think the whole council does, Mr. Chairman.
Very well said.
I want to say one last thing. At the beginning of this, there's one thing that I that did not make sense to me. And I have people in my district that are both pro and con, okay, on this subject. But what never made sense to me is that when my home was built, I wasn't the first to live in it, somebody made a decision on that zoning. And when our church was built that I go to, someone made a decision on that zoning, some public entity. And the same thing with our schools, and the same thing with where we shop, and the same thing with our dentists, our insurance agencies, and every other place that we go to in this parish. Our cattle farmers, and I'm not going to be an expert on that. I'd let Mr. Thompson and Mr. Sharp speak on that issue, okay? But all the areas of our parish, somebody, some entity, either us or councils before us or police juries before us, made decisions that impacted the approval or the disapproval of what was going to go into particular areas. My common sense told me at the beginning, I'm for energy independence. I want to be very clear. I'm for energy independence. But how is it that that's the only thing we have no zoning over? What is so special versus a church, a subdivision, another industry that hires a lot of people? So it's not a negative against anybody. It's simply, to me, and I'm going to vote for this, fair play. We zone everything, let's zone everything. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that being said, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote with your lights, please.
Motion passes with 11 yeas and 2 nays.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Saladano, then we're going to adjourn.
Mr. Dean, I want to just take one moment, and I acknowledge to you that I'm new to this. But I want to say something that I think needs to be said about the exercise that we just went through tonight. And that is simply this. Everybody in this audience and everybody in St. Tammany Parish should know, and hopefully they can figure out, that the people that serve on this council, my brothers to the left and right, and Ms. Blanchard, and Ms. O'Brien to my left, make their decisions based upon their own good thinking process. And so what I would hope is, as a difference coming out of this issue, is that we don't go home tonight and read tomorrow on the internet, somebody like this gentleman next to me was in the pocket of. I think we ought to all be very proud of the fact that opinions can differ up here. And whether you think it's funny or not, I think it's important to me that this process of government ought to be a civil one. And just because someone differs from what I felt in this particular issue, or you felt, I would hope that we would not find that those people are lambasted in some media. And the reality is, I've seen it, and I've seen it too many times. And I think it does a disservice to this parish. I've seen people in this administration be lambasted by certain people in this community, and it's inexcusable. It needs to stop. And I think the exercise that we went through tonight, just like Mr. Danner rightfully expressed his own personal opinion. I'm an attorney in my day job. I have lawyers that differ with me every day. but I don't lose respect for them. And I hope everybody in this parish will recognize, because someone has a different opinion does not mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're in the pocket of. It doesn't mean they're in trouble. It doesn't mean they're doing things for ulterior motives. And I think that that is probably as much a value in this exercise tonight as actually the vote is. I mean, I think most of us feel that there is a good, legitimate legal issue that the attorneys have well articulated, so we're going to see it through to its conclusion because we feel like that exhausts the remedies, and that's our obligation. But hopefully at the same time, we've done something for the better of all of us by saying that we leave here in the spirit of good democracy and debate, and not the fact that just because someone voted against your position, they're a bad person. Thank you very much.
Very well said. With that, we have a motion. Okay, we got to go home sometime tonight. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for acknowledging, but on a much more lighthearted note, okay, and as we prepare to close, I would like to say that this council, like the administration, is blessed. It is really blessed to have the finest group of staffers in St. Tammany Parish, the state of Louisiana, and I'll go as far as saying the United States of America. But tonight, I'd like to recognize one of those persons, Miss Katrina Buckley.
She did
for
good.
not only meeting but exceeding our expectations and fulfilling the role of council clerk tonight.
You beat me to
Thank
it.
you.
She did excellent. Motion to adjourn.